Hi, the name of this video is going to be the Borgias series review, and going to be in this video kind of just talking through or giving my feedback on the two series that were done on the Borgia family, and there's one series that is on it was done on Showtime as a Showtime series, and it lasted 3 seasons. And this series was kind of prematurely cut short. So um, it appears that I was looking online. It appears that there was quite a few people that were upset that the series stopped running, and because basically the story wasn't complete, and so um, this kind of indicates that perhaps there's someone or something working behind the scenes that didn't want the masses to see the details of the information that was being brought out, and prematurely cut the series off. And so what I kind of liken that to is it was about might have been about 10 years ago. I don't remember. It was a while back. There was a an NFL series that was on ESPN, and I think it made one season, and there was all these unknown facts and realistic stories that was being brought out on the NFL, and NFL, I guess, got with ESPN and they put a kibosh on the thing, even though the series was a big hit with a lot of people watching every week. They didn't want those stories to be told. So again, it's just my speculation. But if you got a series, on Showtime, which Showtime I don't think has a big subscription. They might, but I don't think that they do. But um, enough for, I guess, people to mass complaints, and there was even discussion about Showtime just doing a movie, right? Just kind of doing a movie to tell the whole story, right? And I guess that never happened, right? So if you do a movie, you can kind of skate over a lot of stuff without getting into details. But if you got a series, which I think each season probably had about 11, 12 episodes, you're getting into a lot of detail. I mean, a lot of it is garbage, just kind of some. So you could see in this series that they deviated, at least from what the what I've read a lot about the history and what went on. And if you read more into the different characters, it's kind of like they kind of fabricated or deviated from the actual history quite a bit. But anyway, so that's one series, and the other series is so the one on Showtime is called The Borgias. The other series is called Borgia, and in that particular series is a Netflix series, and it's 3 seasons long from beginning to ending. That one was complete. It stuck, in my opinion, stuck closer to the actual facts of events. Um, it The first season is kind of difficult to get through. I don't think as well. It's not as well put together as the last two seasons. So I don't know if they had maybe a change in the writers, or if once the main characters, somewhat got defined, if the story got better, or what. But I after the first season, I was kind of contemplating not finishing it, but but kept going, and it got better, at least from a TV watching standpoint. But it stuck, in my opinion, it stuck a lot closer to the actual story, or at least the history, as I've researched it, than the Showtime series. Okay, and so just like the Showtime series, a lot of sex, nudity, um, a lot of violence, which when you read a lot about the public mutilations and stuff, normally it's you know you know you, normally it's you know earlier on than the 15th century, so it's kind of eye opening, I guess, to understand that there's still a lot of public mutilations for of criminals and stuff in the 15th century, which you did read about some of that with some of the the hunting down of witches and stuff like that activity, but you know kind of you know just you know I wouldn't say eye opening, but it just kind of, I guess, brings some things to memory that from a standpoint of you know that you know these people had so much authority over the masses that they could just do pretty much anything that they wanted. So the one thing in this series, season 3, episode 7, okay, that was in my opinion, well, not in my opinion, I guess just it was a very eye-opening episode, and in this particular episode there was a commoner that you know basically walked to Rome from wherever he lived, carrying a cross, similar to the Messiah, and comes before the Pope, and tries to say, tell him he needs to basically rein in his son Cesare, and he's doing all these atrocities, and you need to rein him in, basically. And so the Pope, um, he's like, throw the guy out. And as the guy is getting thrown out of his presence, or being taken out of his presence, the guy starts quoting what sounded like scripture. Right now, the actual words that he was saying, I don't think it's not word for word what's in any scripture that I'm aware of. But the general message in the scripture that he was so-called quoting pertained to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9. And I'm going to read a few scriptures there, but what he was quoting basically was referencing that the Pope had changed the image of God into a mortal man. And so it kind of references, the history, which there's, historians and writers have touched on the fact that um, the Renaissance image of the Son of God, who most people call Jesus, real name Yahushua, it was based on Cesare Borgia. And there's history on that. And if you look at the images, you can see that it's that individual kind of portrayed in, I guess a biblical um, dressing of of the Son of God. And um, so this guy was referencing that the Pope had basically made a mortal man into God, and the Pope gets very angry when he hears that, and basically goes into a tirade saying that, you know, we can't let scriptures get into the hands of the average man. We have to, you know, the appropriate people have to interpret the scriptures and, you know, and explain them to the average person. And so this gets into a lot of things, gets into the controversy of, why, the church wouldn't let the average person have a Bible. Why, King James was, who did the biggest publication of the Bible, to get it into the hands of the average citizen. Why he was basically an enemy of the church, and there was several attempts made on his life. So it kind of gets into all this, and again, it's all to hide what the scriptures are really saying and what was actually in the scriptures, which is one of the reasons why the Apocrypha, which is where Wisdom of Solomon is, was taken out of the Bible to basically hide, the fact of this prophecy as well as other prophecies and history. Hide those facts from the average person who, you know, um, the world wants to keep in darkness. Um, so, um, overall, from an entertainment standpoint, the two series are good. Um, it's not. I mean, it's for sure. Both of them for sure are R rated. If not the series on done by Netflix. Both series are on Netflix. Okay, right now. But the series done by Netflix, which is the second series I referred to, it is at least R rated. Maybe you might even call it 1X rated or something. Because there is male and female nudity there. So and you know, again, a lot of sex and blood and stuff. So definitely not for children, but for adults, it might be entertaining. But it just gives you a little more context of that story and what the story is all about, what it what give you a good sense of what was going on during that time. And one more thing about the Netflix series, it at the end of the series, right? And at the end of the series, um, after Cesare dies, okay, which he was killed in battle at the siege of hmm, I think it was Venice, I believe. Um, so he's dead, right? And then they show basically someone getting on a ship, basically taking a ship somewhere, and then they show a man getting off this ship into the water, walking onto the beach, and then they pan over and it's Cesare, and then they you see flashing on the screen Americas. So it indicates that Cesare came to the Americas, like, after he was so called killed. And so, I mean, again, with your spiritual eyes, you look at that, you say, okay, well, that basically is saying, or portraying how his image or his spirit, excuse me, came to the Americas. And it really, talking more about, the his image as the Son of God, coming to the Americas, and that's the image that was used to subjugate the Americas, to put the natives in the Americas, to put them down, to basically control them. And so, excuse me, if you look at um, the way Cesare went about his business there in Italy, taking over different towns and making deals, you know, backing out of deals, double crossing people, going back on agreements. You know, if you look at how that was done, that basically is similar to, again, how the Americas was taken over. The way, so on a larger scale, it somewhat is representative of the Americas, is representative of what he was doing in Italy. And of course, we know through our research that his image was the image put in front of the natives, um, for them to worship, right? And so, which is, of course, a false image. So, I was going to read, a little bit from Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9. Excuse me, not chapter 9, chapter 14. Not chapter 9, chapter 14. Verse 15. For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he had made an image of his child soon taken away, now honored him as a god, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. Thus, in process of time, an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law, and the graven images were worshipped by the commandments of kings, whom men could not honor in presence, because they dwelt far off. They took the counterfeit of his visage from far, and made an express image of kings whom they honored, to the end by this their forwardness they might flatter him with him that was absent, as if he were present. Although the singular diligence of the artificer did help to set forward the ignorant to more superstition, for he peradventure willing to please one in authority, force all his skill to make the resemblance of the best fashion. And so the multitude, allured by the grace of the work, took him now as a god, which a little before was but honored as a man. And this was an occasion to deceive the world, for men serving either calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name. Moreover, this was not enough for them. They erred in knowledge of God, but whereas they lived in the great war of ignorance, those so great plagues called they peace. So, again, and I'd say probably the closest, I read from 15 to verse 22, and I think the closest scripture to what the gentleman was saying was probably probably close to probably verse 20. But it really is, he kind of summarized for the most part what I said. And when I say the gentleman, I mean in that one episode, season 3, episode 7. Excuse me. That's somewhat, paraphrasing, all those scriptures. That's, what the gentleman was saying, which, they kind of made it appear like it was scripture, but it tells you, tells you a couple of things. One, that the people that put this series, the Netflix series together, they knew that this was, something that was part of the Bible and in the Bible. And there's no way to interpret it any other way. So anyway, just wanted to bring that out. I like to thank Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, for the opportunity to do this video, and hope that everyone is get some edification out of this video and other videos that I've done. Can research the history on that. One writer that brought this information out was can't remember his name. I think his name's Alexander Dumas. Dumas. I know Dumas is his last name, but he's basically the author that wrote the Four Musketeers and the Man in the Iron Mask, I believe. So he wrote fiction as well as he did some historical research and writings. But he's not the only one that brought out the fact that Cedric Borgias was the image and used for the Son of God in the Western world. And just a little added note on him: if you look him up, he was basically an Israelite, and if you look at the images of him, you can tell that he was a so-called black man. And there also, if you look, his father, I think his name was Thomas Dumas. He was like a top general in the French army, and he's got. If you look up his siblings, his father, they all, I think, they got some history there, where they had done some things, and that have been referenced in the history books. So those are some good names to research, but again, I hope you're edified.